And the truth of the matter is, God cannot, He will not bless you until you deal with the known pattern of sin in your life. Now, that does not mean that God cannot bless you until you're sinless. Now, we know the ultimate blessing will come when we're sinless. But listen to me. You have that outward sin or that inward sin of your thought life, of your speaking life, of your action life. You have that ingrained and besetting sin. That means it's the sin that particularly trips you up. And it might be multiple, but you've got it. So we're not talking about sins that we commit throughout the day because, we get kind of blindsided. We're talking about things that we know are a problem and we refuse to honestly deal with the core of that issue. If you are willingly holding on to sin and making excuses for it and saying, well, it's just the way I am, God let me be this way, blah, blah, whatever it is. If you know there's a sin problem and you are refusing to deal with it, doesn't mean you're not saved, doesn't mean you're not going to heaven, but I'm here to tell you, you will not receive the blessing. You will not be the person that God has fully intended you to be in this life. And I've found that to be true in my own life. That the more I deal with the sin patterns in my life, the greater God opens up the capacity for me to do real ministry, to bless me in what He's called me to do. If you want to be blessed, you've got to deal with sin. You've got to deal with those things that you know you're holding on to. And you've made every excuse in the book, or you've tried to hide it from others, you've tried to hide it from God, you try to put it in the back of your mind. Don't do that. Don't do that. Psalm 66:18. The psalmist wrote, it was talking about an answer to prayer. It's talking about God hearing him, but he also said, if I had cherished iniquity in my heart, the Lord would not have heard me. You know the one prayer that the Lord will always hear? Forgive me. I confess. That's the one prayer the Lord will always hear. There's a million other prayers that continue to go unanswered because we cherish sin in our heart. And therefore, the avenue for God's blessing cannot be opened up. It's like sludge in the pipes. And you add verse 19 on, though, you see the hope. But truly, God has listened. He has attended to the voice of my prayer. And I know hearts are being convicted right now. I know it. I know this is hard, but I know the Holy Spirit is working. And I don't preach to make people feel good for good sake. I preach to make people get closer to Jesus, because that's what brings the good. So listen. You say, well, Shelley, I'm not trying to cherish sin in my heart. Yeah? Well, if you know there's a sin pattern there, if you know there's a besetting, ingrained sin in your life, and you are refusing to bring it to God and do serious business to overcome that sin by His power, you are cherishing it. You're protecting it. Call that a pet sin. Because it's a sin that we kind of pet and say, okay, well, that one's all right. I just can't help it. This is the way I was, this is the way my parents were. It's the way I've always been. So many of you are wondering why God is not answering your prayer to bless you spiritually more, to draw you closer to Him, to make you a better witness for Him. So many of you are wondering, why isn't God answering my prayer to help me overcome in this or this or this? Because you're cherishing sin in your heart. You're protecting sin in your life.